You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello, and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, as always, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak, Mr. Bob Harris. Gentlemen, playoff time in the NFL. Three of us are upright. We had a show before the show, which is always nice catching up with you guys. Mr. Harris, what is good in New Mexico tonight, sir?
All quiet on the New Mexican front, unlike everywhere else, but plenty of football news today. Look, the playoffs are rolling on. We have some issues to deal with. Kyle, I know there are no issues other than DFS for you, correct?
Yeah, man, I'm cruising right now. My workload is getting a little lighter, but it's perfectly coinciding with us getting a double main slate on DraftKings. And not only are there two main slates, the Saturday and Sunday slate, they've also juiced up the prize pools for the showdown slates for every single game. I would assume as a way to entice people who have decidedly lost by 1 p.m. or the end of the 1 p.m. game, then the end of the next game to jump into that final showdown lineup or whatever. But I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. The more the merrier. Let's play the games. So there are a few issues to work through. Cleveland Browns going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers without their head coach, Kevin Stefanski. Alex Van Pelt will call the plays. Mike Freeper, the special teams coach, will be the de facto head coach. They had these plans in place, and obviously they've had ongoing COVID issues. Kadero Hodge will not play in this game. So, Justin, I know your top receiver in this week's play was Kadero Hodge, and I'm sorry that it went like this for you. Harrison Bryant still dealing with the COVID issues as well. The New Orleans Saints hope to have Alvin Kamara back. The timing fits. He can be eligible to play on Sunday. He'll do so with no practice. Drew Brees is not worried by this, says he'll be fine. I think Drew Brees is right. We'll see if Michael Thomas comes back for this game, eligible to come off IR. My guess is he will do that as well. He's practicing this week. Will be limited. Sean Payton playing coy, but expect him to be activated. If he is, it'll happen late in the week, so you'll know well in advance of Sunday's game. The Buffalo Bills will be taking on the Indianapolis Colts. For the Bills, Stephon Diggs sitting out practice early in the week, has an oblique issue. He says it won't be a problem. Downplayed it on Wednesday. Cole Beasley almost certainly won't play. Still considered week to week in that one. So that's something to watch. On the other side of the ball, Phillip Rivers working fully despite the toe injury. Jonathan Taylor has a shoulder, some soreness in the shoulder. I suspect it's because he spent so much time bowling people over in the season finale on his way to 253 yards. My guess is he'll be good to go. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Washington football team. Mike Evans not practicing to open the week, has the knee injury. It was a very scary injury. Surprising that he's on the field. Chris Godwin says, I don't want to be the one to tell him he can't play. There will be a fight. So that's worth watching. The Devin White won't be back on the other side of the ball. Shaq Bennett will. I think Steve McClendon will as well. So off the COVID list. On the other side of the ball, of course, Chase Young wants him some Tom Brady. The Bucs don't care who's quarterback. It's going to be maybe even a rotation. Alex Smith limited to open the week. Wasn't very mobile in the finale against the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll see. Maybe a little Tyler Heineke mixed in there with him. Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin to open the week is limited. They will probably almost certainly play fully. For the Los Angeles Rams, Cooper Kupp off the COVID list. Still no idea if Jared Goff will play. Seems unlikely we'll get that call until the minute before kickoff this week. So be prepared for that. I don't know, guys. Is it better would it be better if John Wolford was starting in this game, Justin, or is Goff really the answer?
I think it's Goff, right? I mean, we've seen him play he is what he is. Remember his rookie year, he was terrible, then he had a fantastic year. He has the experience. There's no time to screw around. The Seahawks are for real. It's probably going to be a boxing match that I'll have little exposure to as a whole. But yeah, it's Jared Goff, and he's definitely going to start as far as I can see tonight, Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll see if as long as he can throw the ball okay, and he is throwing the ball a little bit in practice. The Ravens and Titans, pretty good injury-wise. Steven Gostkowski's still on the COVID list. We'll see if he can get back from that. A.J. Brown limited to open the week. On the other side of the ball, Willie Snead dealing with some issues. And for the Steelers, seems like everyone's going to be healthy and ready to go after taking mostly last week off. So there we have it, kind of setting the table for you. Not a lot in the terms of injuries. The big things to watch will be Alvin Kamara. Is he going to be back? You'll know that well in advance of kickoff. The same with Michael Thomas. Mike Evans will be a player to watch, and we'll have a good idea there. If you're interested in the football team players, we'll have some ideas coming into the game. So you'll have plenty of time to make your adjustments in advance on your daily lineup. So let's jump in, Kyle, and go through the quarterbacks that you approve of this week.
Yeah, so quarterback is a really, I think, interesting position this week because we have the two main slates. On the first of the two main slates, Josh Allen is going to be massive chalk, and on the second of the main slates, I imagine we see a lot of Lamar Jackson chalk. And I think those are both fine. Throwing at or scoring fantasy points, maybe not for Lamar Jackson throwing, but scoring fantasy points at just below to at MVP levels, up there with, your Rodgers, Mahomes. But their prices and their ownership are, I think, efficient. They're going to be expensive to play. They're going to prohibit you from playing, say, an expensive running back. And you're going to be duplicating the start of your lineup with a lot of people in the field. So I think pivoting off of them actually in the exact same game for both players is a really interesting proposition, the first of which would be Phillip Rivers. Both of their opponents actually have solid implied team totals relative to being underdogs. Typically the underdogs are looking something like, Vegas saying the Rams are going to score less than 20 points. That's not the case for Indy. They're actually 22.25 implied team total. And although we do think of them as this, Jonathan Taylor juggernaut team, that's only when they're playing, Jacksonville or whatever. I think when we see them playing against an offense that is expected to score, a touchdown more than their offense, they're going to be forced to throwing the football. And I feel a little bit more confident than I did earlier in the season that we can predict who the receivers are going to be. We've had a pretty solid resurgence in terms of volume from T.Y. Hilton, and after that, it's like a coin flip between Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman, maybe even slightly in favor of Pascal. So they have a more defined pecking order that it's a little more easy to predict that if you get your Phillip Rivers call right, that you will have also made the second piece of that stat correct. So I like Phillip Rivers, and then the other one was Ryan Tannehill. Actually, the highest implied team total of any underdog this week, Ryan Tannehill and the Titans are. Their implied team total is even higher than Seattle. Seattle, as a favorite, is still not projected to outscore Tennessee, which is just mind-blowing because it's all on the basis of not letting Russ cook and then Russell Wilson also not playing particularly well in the second half. But that leaves me at Ryan Tannehill, who plays in the highest total game of the week at 54.5. His team, although just like the Colts are potentially a run-first team, they don't expect to have that type of opportunity. They're slightly over a field goal underdog in this game, and they have thrown the ball incredibly well. Maybe not incredibly often, but when they do, they throw it incredibly well. They have one of the most efficient quarterbacks on a per attempt basis in Ryan Tannehill. So I think at his price, he makes for a great pivot in the same game off of Lamar Jackson. Last quarterback I have is Drew Brees, just because if you're telling me this assumes he gets Michael Thomas back, but assuming he does get Michael Thomas back, if you're telling me Drew Brees on the cheap with a 28.5 implied team total is going to be unowned as a 10-point favorite, meaning he's supposed to score boat race even his opponent with Michael Thomas in the lineup, yeah, I'm going to be playing some Drew Brees.
I like the sound of that. Justin?
Yeah, I'm with you on Tannehill. Again, it's going to come down to ownership, which is huge. 6 games going. I see no reason to stray too far, and it's going to start with Lamar Jackson playing his best football. This is a guy that has a lot to prove. I think this is a season where we've seen guys like Kyler Murray come into their own. Obviously, Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson wants to be in that group. And you're getting the Russian equity, which goes a long, long way in fantasy football. I was looking at season-long league totals, and the rushing equity is massive. It is a differentiator. And I want that as it is the focal point of what the Ravens do, essentially, not just with him, but in their backfield. So it's going to be Lamar Jackson for me against an atrocious Mike Vrabel Tennessee Titans defense. I will have a lot of Lamar Jackson for good reason. And Josh Allen, the same scope, more weaponry there, right? So I'm going to use Josh Allen. I'm going to use Stephon Diggs. I'm going right there. I think the Colts had a fantastic secondary first part of the season. Came back to earth. This guy is playing out of his absolute mind right now. And again, the rushing equity for me, don't have a lot of interest in the backfield because it is cloudy. Tom Brady, I know I'm not being that unique. I'm going right down the list here, but Tom Brady in January at Washington. This is going to be an interesting matchup. You guys have loved Washington defense all year, and for good reason. This kid Chase Young is as good as it gets. He's got some LT in him. He's got some Strahan in him. I mean, the guy just does it all, and I think Tom Brady's going to see a lot of them. That being said, this time of year, the experience that Tom Brady has is second to none. And when you talk about Tom Brady, you're talking about guys like Montana. He has that poise. I don't care what type of front he sees. He will be able to dissect it. They are almost 10-point favorites, 8.5-point favorites. The game is a low total, but I think Tom Brady is going to do his thing. It's just because he's Tom Brady. It's because it's January, and he has excelled with far less weaponry in for the last 2 decades than he has now. This is the best cast of offense that he's probably ever had. The confidence is there. And while I mentioned these guys like Allen, Lamar Jackson, obviously Mahomes is in that scope, and the Kyler Murrays, this 40-something-year-old man still has something to prove away from Bill Belichick. And I think honest to God, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are good enough to make a run. If he gets hot, the league is in trouble. So it's not inconceivable for me to think that Tom Brady could go the distance.
I'm glad he was able to get out of New England, where he would have probably been beaten out by Jarrett Stidham. But what about the pass rush? Chase Young, talking it up, but just in general, this is the kind of defensive front that gives him a little trouble. Any concerns there?
He's got to get rid of the ball with the quick hitters. And again, he has the talent. You saw him shuffling the ball to Antonio Brown. The list goes on and on. Rob Gronkowski's healthy. Obviously, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. He has to get rid of the football. The timing offense in New England, he has to get rid of the ball. I don't think the offensive line is as good as we thought it was going to be. But yeah, they're going to be coming for him, no doubt. And he has the presence of mind, the awareness to get rid of the football. So it's going to be, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball a ton. They'll obviously want to try to establish a run, but boys, I don't need to tell you this. Tom Brady in January is as good as it gets, as good as the NFL has ever seen. So Washington, defensive, front seven aside, I don't really care who it is. It's January. It's Tom Brady. And I think that from an ownership standpoint, a DFS angle, people are going to be scared with a low game total. But again, for the 10th time, it's Tom Brady. It's January. He can gash, anybody. And he has for the last 20 years.
All right, then. How about your running backs, Justin?
Well, you tell me Alvin Kamara's playing, and he is. It looks like the timing is syncing up well.
Convenient. How convenient, NFL. What a random coincidence, right?
So we'll maybe talk about that. Thank God.
Yeah, he's good for the product. He's good for the bottom line. And when there's no Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara still brings some of that bacon home for the league. And 6 touchdowns, week 16. Alvin Kamara is, in my opinion, he's your Christian McCaffrey, volume 2 in regards to being involved in the passing game. He doesn't quite get the volume that Christian McCaffrey gets in terms of carries, but he is, especially with Michael Thomas out of the equation, the focal point of the Saints offense. The points have to come from somewhere. And I think they're going to come from him. We know what Drew Brees is now. He's a shell of himself. Low A dot, dump off central. You're going to score points. It's going to have to go through Alvin Kamara. I think that the Chicago Bears are one of these teams where it's like, how are they in the playoffs? They were just a few weeks ago. We're like, what are we watching here? Very similar to the Patriots. You hear about the Patriots on talk radio. It's just as vanilla as it gets. So the Chicago Bears, in my opinion, have no business being in the playoffs. And in New Orleans with Drew Brees, another guy, not quite Tom Brady, but he's pretty close in terms of experience. We're going to see a lot of Alvin Kamara. I'm not going to go to Derrick Henry, but wouldn't be the first time that has hurt me. Jonathan Taylor, they're gonna run the football. They're gonna run the football. Talk about Josh Allen being hot. Taylor, from a running back standpoint, has been as good as it gets. I was wrong on him too, but offensive lines matter. When you look at PFF and how they graded him, this offensive line shaped up to be fantastic, and he is accustomed to running behind a fantastic offensive line. No need to get cute with Phillip Rivers in January. Run the football, keep Josh Allen off the field. So I will go Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor as far as the spend. And J.K. Dobbins. I think the Baltimore Ravens offense kind of narrow it down. You have a good idea as to what they do. We knew what they were going to do last year. They were this offseason and the year before, and they're going to run the football, and they try to play defense, even though I think they've been dinged up. Not the Baltimore Ravens defense we're certainly accustomed to, but J.K. Dobbins, I think, is the guy, and it would certainly behoove the Ravens to get him the football. Not involved in the passing game, but he will be in my Baltimore Ravens stack, so I can kind of occupy the majority of that backfield anyways. So it'll be Jackson, Dobbins, maybe some Hollywood, and Mark Andrews, and it's really that simple. So tonight, it's Alvin Kamara for certain. I will definitely have some Jonathan Taylor, and why not? He is on a heater. And Dobbins. And if you told me that Cam Akers is going to get the football 30 times, I guess I could get cute and run the way he did against the New England Patriots.
He'll have 32 yards.
I would, yeah. It's not. He looked as good as the league has to offer against the New England Patriots, and then it just kind of unfolded within. It went to shit, quite frankly. So, going to spend there, but you're going to need somebody cheap. And I think as low as I'm going right tonight is going to be J.K. Dobbins.
Fair enough. Kyle?
Yeah, so I think there will be, especially if you're playing Josh Allen stacks, which I'm not probably going to be over the field on, but if you are, I would strongly recommend looking at like a Nyheim Hines, because I think Josh Allen as the Bills as a team essentially are not one that is heavily dictated by game script. Generally, they just end up being one of the highest pass rate teams, win, loss, tie, whatever. They have committed to basically all.
They just can't run.
I'm not sure if they can't run, and they just why would you if Josh Allen is playing the way he is? I don't know.
No need to. He is your running back. He's your running back.
That's also true. He hasn't done that as much this year, but I don't know. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to Brian Daboll and just saying that a sharp coach that sees what Josh Allen is doing would run the football 10 times a game. And although he's not there yet, he's one of the closer things we've had, and we see it with the Chiefs as well. Although we also see it with the Bears and the Steelers, who don't have great run or pass games either. So it's hard to parse what the reasoning is behind it. Is it because they don't run the football well? I don't think Zach Moss or Devin Singletary have actually been bad. I don't think they've been objectively bad. Whereas for much of the season, we actually saw David Montgomery legit just was not able to break a single tackle. He offered nothing. So it made sense that even as generally a winning team, they were going to pass the football, because what were your alternatives? Even with the way James Conner was playing in the middle of the season before even getting injured, it's kind of the same thing. He was just offering you nothing above replacement. So do you go to a middling quarterback over a middling running back, or was it because they really trusted Ben? I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'm working with the data that says it doesn't matter. They could be doing it because they thought Josh Allen looked sexy while he was throwing the football.
And he does, to be fair.
He does. I can tell you as much. He does. I don't care. They're going to continue throwing the football no matter what. That makes me think that you're not really getting this awesome, positive favored team versus negative correlated, passing attack or, running back versus opposing quarterback stack. I think Nyheim Hines, as a de facto pass catcher, he's not really much of a running back, is the ideal run back option with a Josh Allen. I think that is the perfect scenario in which Josh Allen, his team, doesn't actually care if they're winning or losing. They're going to throw the football a ton. They're going to put up a ton of points, presumably. Just run it back with Nyheim Hines. So I think he's the sneakiest play. At the top, I'm going to pivot to Derrick Henry, probably half the ownership of Alvin Kamara. Simply an ownership play. I don't think Derrick Henry's in a particularly good spot. If his ownership is half that of Kamara, we always take those. Cam Akers, because of the volume, I double down with Justin. I think the ownership isn't going to be egregious. The volume is going to be egregious in a good way. Last one I have, Ronald Jones. I just don't think we're going to see a lot of Leonard Fournette. Maybe I'm overrating. It feels hard to say. Am I overrating the fact that they healthy scratched Leonard Fournette in multiple weeks? I don't think so. That seems like a very disgusting indictment of a player. So I think as massive favorites against Washington, we see a lot of Ronald Jones.
Just on Henry, it's just the upside is so vast, right? If he gets off, it just takes a couple runs, right?
Absolutely. We saw this even it might not even, he may never get the big run. He may never get the 30-yarder. We saw it I believe, versus Denver, where he goes over 100 yards in a game where the Titans offense looked like trash. Derrick Henry did not get going. And even as they weren't like crushing their opponents, they just kept giving them the football. We saw it versus the Packers as well, where they were losing and it wasn't really working. And they said, we just do not care. We're going to keep running Henry. So I don't know if I would call him game script independent, but his team does seem to think that even as they're losing or even as he is not playing well, if he's running at 3.1 yards per carry, they're going to keep giving it to him. So his upside, even regardless of game script, is both having 20 carries in which he breaks 2 long ones or having 30 carries and he only runs at 4 yards a carry, and that's still 120 yards.
It tends to be a Jaguars-esque commitment.
Yeah, it is like that, exactly.
Regardless of what's going on in the game. Justin, what were you saying?
I do think he is kind of game script dependent. I mean, where there is no involvement in the passing game is kind of worrisome because the game script has to suit him to get him the football. When they're up, and I saw this, gentleman, week 16 in that high stakes league, Aaron Rodgers got ahead quick. Of course, it was in the snow, and Derrick Henry kind of just did his thing. I mean, he was up around 100 yards, but it wasn't that 150, 200-yard game with a couple touchdowns. So he also has to punch a couple in. So if Baltimore does get up, and they're up in the third quarter, I don't know that Derrick Henry has a use in regards to fantasy. I mean, they have to. I mean, and to the Titans' credit, this is an offense where in previous seasons, they've been running the football. They have the ability to push the ball upfield, so he's not really reliant on those big chunk yard plays as much as he used to be because Ryan Tannehill can move the ball up the field with his weaponry. But he scares me, and every time I don't use him, he drops 35 points. So we'll see. There's no question about it. He is the focal point of the Titans' offense. It's just a matter of how the game script is going. And quite frankly, they don't need to be relying on him with the talent around him. And I mentioned A.J. Brown. Corey Davis had a spectacular season. So as an option 2 in the passing game, like they don't necessarily need Derrick Henry to rush for 150 yards to be successful.
Yeah, he just does it anyway. Kyle, your wide receivers.
Yeah, so we talked about, or at least briefly mentioned it. I'm going to be playing like a sick amount of Michael Thomas if he ends up playing. It's just that we saw last year he was a guy who at 9.5K on DraftKings, we were like, that seems fair. And does he play that exact role? I don't know. Like, I honestly can't tell you if he comes back at 100% health with 100% of the role and is as efficient as he was last year. I don't know. But at his price, I would bet on it being a good play. 6,400 on DraftKings. And he's not going to be particularly highly owned. This has been a comically bad bust from getting not only the injuries, but the team, healthy scratching him at one point, giving him this little mini suspension for fighting another one of the corners or whatever. It has been a very visibly bad season if you were trying to play Michael Thomas. I'm running right back into that fire, man. We talk about it all the time. When you get low owned, when you get low price studs, I don't care what the narrative around them is. We still have the entirety of last year telling us that Michael Thomas is one of the best fantasy options, especially on a 100-yard bonus site like DraftKings, especially on a full PPR site like DraftKings, which is kind of the context I'm talking about, where more of my action ends up being. I'm jamming in a ton of Michael Thomas. I think it's a little bit interesting, maybe pivoting if we don't see Cole Beasley to a Gabriel Davis. Not going to be super highly targeted, given that he's competing with a awesome, probably one of the 5 or so best receivers. I mean, given his number 1 receptions, number 1 receiving yards, number 1 targets, I believe, maybe the number 1 receiver in Stephon Diggs in the entire league, if not a top 5 guy. But I think Gabriel Davis's role as that outside deep threat for a cannon in Josh Allen, he could steal a drive. He could steal 2 drives. I think the perfect example of this was Marquez Valdes-Scantling stealing an entire drive with a long bomb touchdown. There's a reason Devontae Adams in a blowout game didn't absolutely go berserk in week 17. It was because his team lost an entire drive to a Marquez Valdes-Scantling bomb, and they could have lost a second one. He dropped one, and it was pretty brutal. It was bad. It was bad, but I think Gabriel Davis could sort of serve as that exact same role. And then a game we haven't really talked about much, I don't think, is the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh, just like the Bills, just like the Chiefs, is a team that no matter what, they're just going to keep passing the football. Why? Is it because they believe in Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, I've watched Ben play, and I'm not sure if that's the answer, but They have a pretty awesome core of receivers. I'm willing to go back to double-digit Deontay, as we call him, just because of the amount of times he has seen double-digit targets. I'm always going to be playing Deontay Johnson. I don't think he's going to be incredibly popular because I don't think Pittsburgh versus Cleveland is going to be incredibly popular. And I actually have some interest in just running like a Pittsburgh double stack of Chase, Deontay, and Ben Roethlisberger, because I think that's going to be a really unique build. And we know this passing attack has so much upside, even if it's just volume-based upside. It has it.
Yeah, I'm buying that. Justin?
Yeah, so why fool around now, right? Stephon Diggs, love Josh Allen, no secret there. It's just the relationship is formed, 1,500 yards. He's going to play. Diggs is as good as it gets, quite frankly, in season-long leagues. You are going to have to exhaust probably an early second-round pick as far as I'm concerned, maybe a first-round pick at the tail end. We've seen that with wide receivers, and that's been my approach. So Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen stacks right off the bat.
Yeah, hold on a second, Justin. We've mentioned Stephon Diggs, and I have not made my obligatory apology for disrespecting him back in August. Apologies, Stephon Diggs. Go ahead.
No, there was uncertainty. We didn't know that Josh Allen was going to develop like this. He was inaccurate, to say the least, last year. He just kind of came into his own. I think that came with comfortability. So they are the real deal, and they're going to be on top of the FC East for a long time to come. These players in between, like the Godwins and the Locketts, I think these are going to be, these games set up to be, like I said, slugfest. Do not have a ton of interest in the Seahawks-Rams game. I think these teams know each other. It's going to be a 23-10 type deal, 24-10. On paper, yeah, there's a lot of offense, but these teams know each other, and